They never said it out loud, not at first. But I heard it in the pauses. In the glances passed over soup bowls. In the way my father-in-law, Mr. Leong, would look at my stomach instead of my face. It was always the same, especially at family dinners. "You two look so well," he would say, spooning steaming bone broth into his bowl. "Isn't it time we had someone new at the table?" My husband, Daniel, would chuckle politely. I would smile, say something evasive like, "We're keeping busy," and then change the subject. But the message lingered like the smell of fish sauce long after everyone left. I was supposed to give this family a grandchild. And the fact that I hadn't, by year 3 of our marriage, was becoming a problem. Not mine. Theirs. When I married Daniel, I thought I was walking into love. And I was. But love, I've learned, is never the only thing you marry. You marry habits, expectations, culture, family, and sometimes you marry a shadow. Someone else's legacy you're supposed to fulfill. Daniel and I met during grad school. He was funny, brilliant, and quietly intense. I was the first to say, "I love you," and the last to bring up children. Not because I didn't want them, but because I wasn't sure. And that should have been okay. Daniel knew this when we got married. We had long, late-night talks in our shoebox apartment, eating leftovers out of the pan. I told him I might want kids someday. He said he could wait. I believed him. I think he believed himself. But his father? Mr. Leong didn't believe in waiting. And he sure as hell didn't believe in maybe. The first time I met him, he greeted me by handing me a red envelope and saying, "You're a good girl. Educated. Strong. I hope you give this family strong grandchildren." Not hello. Not welcome. Just that. I laughed awkwardly. Daniel looked embarrassed. His mother, May, patted my hand and added, "He means he's happy to meet you." But I had already heard what he meant. From the start, my body wasn't mine anymore. It was a potential factory. A blueprint for someone else's pride. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself it was cultural, traditional, harmless. But tradition has sharp teeth when you're not careful. And over the years, the bites got deeper. Every family dinner became a performance. "How's work?" my mother-in-law would ask kindly. "Oh, still doing those design projects?" Mr. Leong would interrupt. "But not too many hours, right? Not too much stress." Daniel would tense. I'd clench my teeth and say, "No, just enough." And then the next question, always disguised as a joke. "What's more important, clients or children?" Sometimes I wanted to answer honestly. Sometimes I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because I didn't want to make Daniel choose. Because I loved his mother. Because I still hoped they would understand. Until it became clear they never would. It was the Lunar New Year dinner that finally cracked the surface. Everyone was there. Daniel's cousins, his aunt from Toronto, even his grandmother who only left the house 3 times a year. We ate, laughed, played cards. It was loud, warm, familiar. Until the red envelopes were passed around and Mr. Leong raised his glass for a toast. "To a year of blessings," he said, sweeping the table. "And hopefully, next year, we'll have a baby bouncing in someone's lap." Everyone cheered. Except me. Because he was looking directly at me when he said it. Daniel shifted beside me. I forced a smile. Then Mr. Leong added, "We've waited long enough, haven't we?" My chopsticks froze midair. Silence stretched across the table like spilled wine. Daniel said nothing, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't going to defend me. That night, I confronted him. Not in anger. In confusion. "Do you agree with him?" I asked. Daniel rubbed his eyes. "He's just old-fashioned." "You know how he is." "That's not an answer." He sighed. "He wants grandkids. That's not a crime." "And what do you want?" I asked, softer this time. He looked at me then. And it wasn't with the warmth I was used to. It was with the weariness of someone caught between 2 loyalties. "I want you to be happy," he said. "But I also want to be a father." My stomach dropped. You never said it like that before. I didn't want to pressure you. But now you're letting him do it for you. Daniel didn't reply. And in that silence, I felt something in our marriage shift. Not break. Not yet. But splinter. And once you notice the cracks, you can't unsee them. In the weeks that followed, things changed. Subtly. Quietly. But they changed. Daniel became more distant. He stopped joining my work Zooms to say hi. He stayed later at the office. He didn't laugh as much. He didn't reach for me in bed. And when he did, it felt like it came with expectation. Like love was no longer about us. It was about what comes next. I caught him looking at baby photos on Instagram. Nursery design videos on YouTube. He didn't try to hide it. I didn't ask. Because I was afraid of the answer. Then came the lunch invitation. From Mr. Leong. Just me. Not Daniel. I should have said no. But something in me, curiosity, obligation, pride, said yes. We met at his favorite dim sum place. The one he'd taken Daniel to as a boy. The one where he'd said he hoped his future grandkids would slurp soup dumplings there too. He ordered without asking what I wanted. He poured me tea I didn't drink. And then he said, I want to talk to you, woman to woman. I nearly choked. He leaned forward. You've had time. You've had freedom. You've had your career. But Daniel is the only son. He's carrying our family name. It's time. I set down my cup. Time for what, exactly? For you to give him what he deserves. A child. A legacy. I swallowed hard. You're not the one in this marriage. I gave him life, he said. I raised him. I sacrificed for him. And now he's sacrificing his future because you're not ready. The words hit like fists. You think this is easy for me? I said quietly. You think I haven't thought about it every single day? Then why wait? Because I want to choose it, I said. Not be forced. He waved his hand. You women think choice is everything. But family is duty. I stood. I love your son. But if this is the price of staying in this family, maybe I'm not the one who doesn't belong. He looked up at me then, not angry. Just tired. Then you'll lose him. And that was when I realized. This wasn't about love. It was about control. About obedience. About legacy. I left the restaurant without finishing my food. And when I got home, Daniel was already sitting on the couch, waiting for me. I talked to him, I said. I know, he replied. He told me. I stared at him. And what do you think? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think we need to talk seriously. About kids. About the future. About what this marriage means if we don't want the same thing. I nodded slowly. And said the only honest thing I could. I think we do need to talk. But not tonight. Because if I start speaking now, I don't know if I'll stop. He didn't argue. He just looked away. And the space between us widened. It took me 2 days to say anything more to Daniel. Not because I didn't have words, but because I had too many, and I wasn't sure which ones would tear our marriage down and which ones might salvage what was left. I spent those 2 days walking around the city with headphones in, no music playing. I didn't answer texts. I didn't reply to work emails. I just moved. Through cafes. Side streets. Grocery aisles. Watching mothers push strollers, toddlers screaming in toy stores, fathers wiping ketchup from their kids' cheeks at food courts. Everywhere I looked, children. Parents. Families. And I wondered if I was broken. Because I didn't ache for that. Not in the way they wanted me to. I wasn't anti-child. I didn't hate the idea of motherhood. But I hated the expectation of it. I hated that my worth as a woman, a wife, a daughter-in-law, was apparently reduced to whether or not I could produce a human that looked vaguely like Daniel. When I finally came home, Daniel was on the patio, sipping tea like nothing had ever happened. He looked up when I stepped out. I sat across from him and didn't speak. He broke first. Are you going to leave me? He asked. The question was sharp. Honest. Frightened. I don't know, I said. And that was worse than yes. He put the cup down. I never meant for this to turn into a war. No, I said, because it feels like I've been under siege for the last 3 years. He looked at me, really looked. You knew what kind of family I came from. I did. But I thought I married you, not them. That hurt him. I could see it. But I needed him to hurt. I needed him to feel what I had been carrying. My father isn't wrong, he said, quietly. That silenced me. He took a breath. He shouldn't have said what he said, not like that. But he's right in some ways. I do want children. I always have. I put it away because I thought you'd get there. And what if I don't? I whispered. He didn't answer. I stood. That's what I thought. The next week was a blur of avoidance. We slept in the same bed but didn't touch. We ate dinner in silence. We passed each other in the hallway like ghosts of the couple we used to be. I told my best friend Claire everything. We met at a cafe, and I poured the entire story out between sips of coffee and tears I didn't let fall until the last word. I feel like I'm being slowly erased, I said. Like I'm no longer a person in this marriage, just a uterus with opinions. Claire didn't sugarcoat. That's why I loved her. You're not crazy, Anna. This is control. Your father-in-law's trying to bully you into motherhood, and Daniel's letting him because he doesn't want to be the bad guy. She was right. Daniel hadn't defended me. Not really. He hadn't drawn any lines. He just let his father keep stepping into our life like it was his own. That night, I sat Daniel down. I'm not saying never, I told him. I'm saying I need space. Time. And I need you to stop handing me to your father like a bargaining chip. He frowned. You make it sound like I don't love you. Do you? I asked. Do you love me enough to let me choose what I want, even if it's not what you want? Silence. That was my answer. 2 weeks later, Mr. Leong invited us to his 65th birthday dinner. I didn't want to go. But Daniel said, it'll mean a lot to my mom. So I went. I wore a red dress and painted on a smile so perfect it made my cheeks ache. We arrived at the family estate and were greeted with gold lanterns, live music, and 30 of Mr. Liang's closest friends, most of whom barely acknowledged me. During dinner, I noticed something new. Whispers. Women looking at me, then glancing at each other. I leaned toward Daniel. What's going on? He looked away. I knew that look. Later, during dessert, one of the guests approached me, some second cousin I barely knew, and said, I hear you're trying now. That's wonderful. I blinked. Trying? She nodded enthusiastically. Daniel's father told everyone. So happy for you both. I stood up. My hands were shaking. I found Daniel in the corner of the room, talking to his uncle. What the hell did you tell them? I hissed. He looked panicked. I didn't say anything. I swear. Then your father did. He didn't deny it. I walked out. I didn't wait for dessert. I didn't say goodbye. When we got home, I lost it. You let him lie about my body, I shouted. You let him tell people I'm trying, like this is some game they all get to place bets on. I didn't know, Daniel said. I swear I didn't know. But you're okay with it, aren't you? I said. You want them to think I'm finally falling in line. That's not fair. No, Daniel, I said, voice breaking. What's not fair is being asked every month if I'm pregnant. What's not fair is hearing that I'm selfish because I won't sacrifice myself for your father's legacy. What's not fair is you standing by while he turns our marriage into a breeding contract. I didn't ask for that. But you didn't stop it either. And that, again, was the truth. He never stopped anything. Because a small part of him agreed. That night, I packed a bag. Just one. Not forever. Just enough to leave the house I no longer felt safe in. Daniel didn't stop me. He stood in the doorway, watched me zip the suitcase, and whispered, I just wanted a family. I am your family, I said. Or at least I was. And then I left. I stayed at Claire's for 3 days. She made me tea. Gave me space. Didn't press. I read. Slept. Thought. And somewhere between crying in the shower and eating cold noodles on her couch, I realized something. I wasn't broken. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't less of a woman because I didn't want to be a mother on someone else's timeline. I was still whole. Still me. And if Daniel couldn't see that, if his father never would, then maybe I wasn't the one failing this marriage. Maybe I was the one finally waking up. On the fourth day, Daniel called. I want to talk, he said. But not like before. I want to listen. I agreed to meet. Not to save the marriage, but to see if it was worth saving at all. Daniel chose the cafe. Quiet. Neutral territory. A place where the coffee tasted like burnt decisions and the windows let in too much light to hide under. I arrived 5 minutes early. He was already there. He looked tired. Like someone who had spent too many nights thinking about what he should have said. And maybe, finally, ready to listen. We ordered our drinks. Sat down across from each other. Then came the silence, the kind that doesn't ask for small talk. I've been thinking a lot, he started. I nodded. So have I. I didn't realize how much of this I've let happen, he said. I thought staying out of it made me neutral. But it didn't. It made you complicit, I said softly. He winced, but didn't argue. I just didn't want to fight with him, he said. You know how he is. How he gets? Yeah, I said. I know how he gets. But I needed to know how you get when I'm not okay. And I didn't. He looked at me then, eyes red-rimmed. I wanted to protect you. No, Daniel. You wanted to protect yourself from disappointing him. You wanted to be the good son. The loyal one. The man who keeps the family name alive. But what happens when being that man means I have to disappear? He dropped his gaze. I love you, he said. But you love his approval more, I replied. The weight of that truth filled the space between us. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered. I took a deep breath. I don't either. But I know what I need. What? A break, I said. Real distance. From you. From him. From all of it. I need to figure out who I am without everyone's voices in my head telling me what I should want. He nodded, then asked the question I had both feared and expected. Do you still want me? And I gave him the only honest answer I had. I don't know. I moved out the next week. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I finally started loving myself more. I got a short-term lease on a small studio with white walls, high ceilings, and no one else's dreams pinned to the fridge. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without dreaming of cribs, baby names, or monthly check-ins with his mother. I kept my phone on silent. I went for walks. I started drawing again. My sketch pad, untouched for over a year, slowly filled with curves, lines, abstract bursts of color. Everything I had been too exhausted to feel while I was busy being enough for everyone else. My mother called. I didn't answer. My own parents didn't even know about the separation. I couldn't bear to hear my mother say, but children are a blessing, like that made the pressure less suffocating. Claire was the only one who got it. You're allowed to choose yourself, she reminded me. Even if no one claps for you. 2 weeks into living alone, I got a text from Daniel. Dad's hosting a dinner. Wants to talk. He says it's important. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied. Only if he listens. I'm not coming to be lectured. Daniel sent a thumbs up. The dinner was at the same house, the house where I'd heard for years that my life would only matter once it produced something else. I wore black slacks, a white blouse, no makeup. I didn't want to impress. I wanted to be clear. Daniel opened the door. He looked like he hadn't slept much. He led me inside. His mother gave me a cautious hug. His father? He nodded from across the room, then motioned for us to sit. Once we did, he began. I've been thinking, he said. About legacy. About pressure. My spine tensed. He continued, when I was your age, I had 2 sons. By 35, I had built a company from nothing. My wife raised the boys while I built a future. His wife looked down. He added, I thought that was the formula. Build. Multiply. Legacy. And now? I asked. He sighed. Now I see that formula isn't working. That startled me. He went on. Daniel told me everything. About how you feel. About how I've made you feel. I won't lie, it was hard to hear. But I heard it. I didn't speak. I waited. I'm not going to pretend I understand your choices, he said. But I understand this. I pushed you away. And I nearly cost my son his marriage. I blinked. Slowly. Is that your way of apologizing? He chuckled, bitterly. It's the best I can do. Then he added, but if you decide to stay apart, that's honest too. I accept that. His words were clumsy, but I felt the weight of them. I nodded. Thank you, I said. That was it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But something between us thawed. Daniel walked me to the car afterward. I meant what I said at the cafe, he told me. I want to fix this. With you. Not with my father's voice in my head. Just yours. And mine. I looked at him. There was still love. But now, there was also a boundary. Then let's take our time, I said. No pressure. No timeline. Let's just see if we can find each other again. He nodded. And let me go. Not as a goodbye, but as a beginning. Back at my studio, I stood at the window watching the lights of the city flicker on. And I realized, for the first time in my adult life, no one was expecting me to carry something I hadn't chosen. No one was waiting for my body to do something I hadn't asked of it. No one was holding a timer over my head. I was free. Not because I had abandoned family, but because I had remembered my own name. It's funny what solitude does to a person. It doesn't break you, not if you choose it. It clarifies you. Like a fog lifting after years of choking on everyone else's dreams. In my small studio with its blank walls and humming fridge, I wasn't anyone's daughter-in-law. I wasn't a vessel. I wasn't a womb on standby. I was just Anna. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough. I kept a simple routine, morning walks, work at the design firm, evening sketching or reading. I had my favorite candle, a playlist filled with women who sang with fury and softness in equal parts, and a chair that creaked just the right amount when I leaned back to think. I bought new bedsheets, navy and cream, and a second-hand teak table I assembled myself. It wobbled a bit, but I didn't care. It was mine. Claire came over once a week with too much wine and even more unsolicited dating stories. She never asked about Daniel unless I brought him up. I liked that about her. Her respect for my silence, her lack of need to fix anything. You look lighter, she said one night, half drunk and dancing barefoot in my living room. Like you dropped 100 pounds of male expectation. Only 80, I said, laughing. Daniel wasn't all bad. No, she agreed. But even the nicest leash is still a leash. That stayed with me. Daniel didn't call often, but when he did, it wasn't to beg. It was to ask how I was. To share small things like his mother starting yoga or his decision to move out of the apartment we used to share. I couldn't stay, he said once. Not after you left. It felt like your absence was screaming through the walls. I didn't ask where he moved. I didn't ask if he was dating. He didn't ask me either. This was what we agreed to, time, space, truth. Still, there were days I missed him. Quiet mornings where I'd instinctively reach across the bed. Evenings when I'd hear something funny and wonder how he'd react. But I never let nostalgia rewrite history. Missing someone isn't the same as needing them back. One Sunday afternoon, nearly 3 months after the dinner with his father, Daniel texted, "Would you like to have coffee this week? Just talk. No pressure." I stared at the message. Typed, "Okay. Thursday?" Sent it before I could overthink. We met at a quiet coffee shop tucked between a florist and a bike repair shop. It was raining, a light drizzle that made everything outside feel slower, softer. He looked different. Not broken. Just bare. Like someone who had been forced to see himself without armor. "I brought something," he said, sliding a folded piece of paper across the table. I opened it. My name was on top. Below it, a series of handwritten paragraphs. "What is this?" I asked. My apology, he said. The real one. The one I should have given you before you walked away. I read the first line. I didn't protect you the way you deserved to be protected. My throat tightened. I let my father's voice drown out your own. I watched you dim yourself to survive in a house that never really made room for who you were. I told myself I was being neutral, but neutrality in oppression is just compliance in silence. By the third paragraph, my eyes burned. I don't know if you'll come back. I don't know if you should. But I want you to know that I've started therapy. I've started unlearning the stories I was raised on. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. All of it. I folded the letter. Looked at him. You really wrote that? He nodded. Every word. And you meant it? Every single one. A long pause passed between us. Then I said, I'm not ready to be your wife again. I know. But I'd like to see who you become without him in your ear. Without me carrying you through every hard choice. He exhaled, a sound that was part sorrow, part relief. I'd like that too. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other again, not as husband and wife, but as people. We went for walks. We sent each other articles. We talked late into the night about things we'd never said before. About how we were both raised to believe compromise meant silence. That love meant sacrifice. That tradition trumped individuality. And how we were both trying to untangle those lies. One day he said, you know, I still want children. I froze. But he continued, but not if it costs someone I love their autonomy. I don't know if I want them, I said. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But I need you to know it has to come from me. Not a dinner table. Not your father's pride. Not your mother's quiet sighs. He nodded. I know that now. And I believed him. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. Then came the day I visited his parents. He didn't ask me to. I asked him. His mother hugged me so tightly I thought she might never let go. She whispered, I'm sorry. For not standing up sooner. I saw what was happening. I didn't know how to fight him. You didn't have to fight, I said. You just had to see me. She nodded. Her eyes welled. Mr. Leong greeted me at the table with 2 cups of tea. I'm learning, he said. I raised an eyebrow. To let go. To let be, he corrected. And that was enough. We ate quietly. No questions about children. No passive-aggressive jokes. Just food. And room. At the end, as I got up to leave, he stood too. I may never understand your choices, he said. But I respect the woman who made them. Later that night, Daniel and I sat in the car, engine off, rain drumming gently on the windshield. I still don't know where we'll end up, I said. Neither do I, he replied. But wherever it is, I continued, it needs to be a place we both choose. Not one we're pushed into. He reached over. Took my hand. No more pushing, he said. Only walking. Side by side. There's a moment when you've been rebuilding something broken, where you have to decide, do I finish repairing the foundation or do I walk away and build somewhere new? That was where I stood. My life was no longer falling apart. It had simply shifted into a new kind of balance, one where I could breathe again without waiting for someone else's approval to exhale. Daniel and I weren't back together. Not in the way people expected. There were no Instagram announcements. No moving vans. No whispered promises in the dark. There were just conversations. Slow. Honest. Sometimes painful. Sometimes comforting. He'd changed. I could see it. In the way he paused before answering. In the way he corrected his own assumptions before I had to. In the way he told his father, clearly and without apology, Anna's body is not a debate. But change is not an automatic return. And love, even when genuine, is not always a reason to stay. One afternoon, we sat on a park bench under a sycamore tree. It was early spring, and petals were falling like little white ghosts across our laps. Daniel looked at me and said, I'm ready to rebuild, if you are. I was quiet. Then I said, Are you ready for the possibility that what I rebuild might not include motherhood? He didn't flinch. Not anymore. He just said, I want a family, but not at the cost of losing you. And that's when I knew. He finally saw the difference. We didn't move back in together immediately. Instead, we started over like two people dating for the first time. We went on walks, shared books, spent weekends apart when we needed to. It wasn't perfect, but it was intentional. And that made all the difference. I started therapy, not for trauma, for clarity. I learned that I had spent years being what I thought was a good wife, quiet, supportive, patient. But really, I had been conditioned to believe that being agreeable was the price I paid to belong. I stopped paying it. And when I did, I found out something surprising. I didn't feel lonely anymore, because I finally belonged to myself. A few months later, Daniel invited me to a family gathering. It was May's birthday, his mother. I hesitated, not because I didn't love her, but because I wasn't sure I wanted to sit at the same table where I had once been served silence instead of support. Still, I went. And when I arrived, Mr. Leong stood up, in front of everyone, and said, Anna, welcome back. This time, not as someone we expect to give us anything, but as someone we're lucky to receive just as she is. The room fell silent. He bowed slightly. I didn't cry, but May did. I nodded, sat down, ate slowly. No one asked when we were having kids. No one glanced at my stomach. No one whispered about timelines. Because that version of me, the one under pressure, under watch, no longer existed. Later that night, Daniel and I sat outside in the garden. He handed me a small box. I froze. It's not a ring, he said quickly. I promise. I laughed. Opened it. Inside was a key. To my new place, he said. Bought it last week. I raised an eyebrow. It's a 2-bedroom. One for us if we decide to live together again. One for whatever we want. A studio. A reading room. A nursery. Or nothing at all. I looked at him. You're really okay with that? He nodded. Anna, I've had to unlearn everything I thought being a husband meant. And I've realized, loving someone doesn't mean asking them to become someone else. Tears pricked my eyes. Not because of the key, but because I finally believed him. 2 years later, we were still together. Still choosing. No children. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But a life full of purpose, not pressure. Some nights, we talked about adopting a rescue dog. Other nights, we volunteered with youth art programs. I started a mentorship network for women designers. Daniel began leading workplace equity workshops for men in leadership. We became more than what our parents expected. We became ourselves. One day, I stood in front of a group of college students giving a talk about designing your own life. Someone raised their hand and asked, how do you know when you're making the right decision if everyone around you disagrees? I smiled and said, when the decision feels like freedom, not fear, you'll know. That was my answer. That's the answer I gave myself every time I was tempted to make peace by betraying my own truth. My father-in-law still hopes, in his quiet moments, that we'll one day give him grandchildren. But now he never says it. Because he knows better. Because he saw what happened when he pushed too far. And because he finally learned what love looks like when it's not based on conditions. I didn't walk away from Daniel. I walked away from the version of him that didn't see me. And when he found me again, really found me, we began something new. Not a marriage built on duty. Not a future built on someone else's definition of family. But a partnership where we both belonged.